Have you ever taken cold showers or did anything like that?
Yeah, for a while I was starting my every day with a cold shower and doing it the way that you described, which is you're right. You never get used to it. Like I
Hmm.
did it for about a year straight, and every single morning, my mind was like, "You don't need to do it today.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it." Like always trying to look for a way out because it's like your body never really gets used to that shock, especially when you wake up with it. It's like, what a jarring way to start your day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good ideal for me to have, like, or to think about, but I don't know if I could even. I don't know. It's tough. I know how beneficial it is because I don't know if it's like a placebo effect of knowing that you put yourself through such like a intense thing right at the beginning of your day, and so it's like, oh, I just took this cold shower, like what else could hurt me, like what's the worst thing that could happen in my day? I probably just did that to my to myself and my own volition. Like I probably just inflicted my own suffering. Like it can't be any worse than this, and it's a good idea to have. But I don't know if I could do it every day. I do it like probably 3 to 5 days a week, and it feels good. Just sometimes it's nice, like if I don't know, if I'm feeling like low energy or just my mood is off. I think I always have to do something to switch it up, whether it's a cold shower or do some like crazy yoga or smoke some weed or whatever it is, like to just do something where I just need to switch. Like there's just something in me that knows, like I have that, that perspective of knowing, that mindset of like, oh, something's off. I have to do something about it. And a cold shower it's usually like a really good remedy for like any kind of like negative emotions or feelings that I'm having. It's just so rejuvenating.
Yeah, it's definitely a character building exercise. Whether it has any other benefits, I mean, I didn't really notice any benefits when I did it for a year, other than it takes a tremendous amount of willpower and discipline to
Yeah.
do it every day. And so I think just that is building up your ability to make hard decisions or to subject yourself to discomfort, which is something that not a lot of people get practice in, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, man. Like that is when I'm a firm believer in like you inflict your own discomfort or self-suffering, it will make the discomfort that you don't cause yourself or your own, it isn't on your own accord, more bearable in a way, because that's the first tenet of Buddhism, is that life is suffering. We're all going to go through shit, whether it might not be now, but it will be at some time in your life. We're all going to go through something. So if you just prepare yourself for just being uncomfortable, I guess, or just being unsettled, or just going through some kind of pain, whether it be physical or some kind of, I mean, you don't want to put yourself through emotional pain, but like I always think, like if you put yourself through physical pain, it makes the emotional pain easier to get through. Like um I think a lot of people, like mental illness, a lot of it can be helped just through exercise. I'm a huge believer in exercise, not only just to look good or just to have abs or like have a nice body. Like that comes secondary. I think the primary thing of exercise is the mental aspect to it, like what we get from it, like the after effects of it, and just how good you feel. Because like, I used to be a big weightlifter, and like every time I would just do it just because I had to get something out of me. Like I just want to like get that energy out. And after I do it, you just feel like, like, it feels so good, man. There's just something like where it's all connected, like mind, body, and spirit. Like it's this entire organism that we are is just this temple that we need to nourish. And that's the problem, is most people don't exercise, and it's a sad thing to see. But I think a lot of people could get over their mental ailments. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but but what, from my own experience, is a lot of people could help themselves if they just simply exercised, whether it be like 3 5 days a week for maybe 20 30 minutes a day. I don't know, do you have any experience with that? Like what do you have any regimen?
yeah, dude, I agree with you. I also think the opposite is equally true. Like you can work out and experience none of the mental benefits. You know what I mean? If you're focused on just getting big muscles or looking good or whatever, if it's all like cosmetic.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, I like you, I used to lift weights. I used to work out, a couple hours at the gym, 5 days a week. Like I was really into it, but I didn't have the mental resilience or the open heart that I have now. So it didn't really give me the
Hmm.
benefits, the mental, spiritual benefits, if you will. But now, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I work out. To me, I view it almost like the cold showers, because it takes discipline, right? A lot of
Yep.
people, they want to get fit, they want to get yoked or whatever, but it's painful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to come naturally. It's not going to come easily. It requires a commitment of time. It requires willpower. And it also requires a level of comfort with discomfort because your body's
Hmm.
going to hurt. So yeah, I think part of it is a discipline. It's like, if you can make yourself work out 5 days a week, even if it's only half an hour, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a big step for a lot of people. And then the more you do it, the more you have confidence in yourself and in your ability to execute those types of difficult decisions again. So yeah, I view it as a discipline, but yeah, I get lots of endorphins out of, I like to hit the heavy bag. That's like my favorite workout.
Mm.
And afterwards, you can't beat the heavy bag. It always wins, no matter how hard you hit it. You can wail on it for half an hour, and at the end of it, you're dead. And it's just flopping around like nothing happened. So
Mm.
yeah, definitely good for mental health and feeling, physically good about yourself after the fact, for sure. Yeah,
I've
I'm with you.
always
The
wanted to try it.
balance. What's that?
I've always wanted to try just hitting a heavy bag. I've never really just, I don't have the space for it, but like I've never really just went in on a like on just I never really just went in on a heavy bag. I'd like to do that someday. It probably
It
feels
feels
good.
good. Oh,
I can imagine.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the best for sure, in my opinion, anyways. But yeah, to what you were saying about the balance, that's central to my entire philosophy: mind, spirit, and body. If you neglect one, the other two will suffer. And it's my experience and so many other people's experience.
Hmm. Can you we kind of just got into the conversation, but would you want to explain your philosophy, the outsider's perspective, and kind of like outline that for anybody listening?
Sure. Yeah. I've been thinking about this all day because I've been watching your podcast, and you like let people introduce themselves at the beginning. And these are like researchers, part of these groups that are like trying to decriminalize psychedelics. And I'm just some dude.
Hey,
So
everybody's
yeah,
just some dude, it's whatever. Just whatever you think your story is, or just your viewpoint on life, whatever your mindset is.
totally. Yeah. So, I mean, what I said to you in my original email, I think is probably the best way to describe it. And as I said, the outsider's perspective and the conscious perspective are either very similar or the exact same thing, depending on how you look at it. So my sort of symbol for it, or my sort of metaphor for it, is like, imagine you're in a dream, you're dreaming, you don't know it's a dream. That's the insider's perspective. You're looking at the world from inside the dream, and you don't know that there's anything beyond that dream. Your entire reality is encompassed in that dream. When you become conscious, you're actually standing outside of the dream for the first time and seeing it from the outside. And that's what I call the outsider's perspective. It's seeing your old conditioned patterns of thinking and doing, seeing all of your old beliefs and your old filters, because we filter the world through sort of different lenses, right? Different filters. So it's seeing all that stuff from outside of it for the first time. And then the more you pursue this path, the further out you go, the more you get clarity on, this thing we call reality, whatever that is, whatever
Yeah,
that happens to
whatever
be.
that's the thing, is the further out you go, the more of a mystery it becomes. And it's just like to me personally, I think you describe somebody's going past my house with a very loud bass. Did you hear that?
I did not.
Oh, okay. I was like hoping that it wasn't in the mic, but yeah, it was really loud. But but what you described was it's the we definitely have the same mindset, man. It's the conscious perspective and the outsider's perspective. It's the same thing. It's just coming to terms that our whole world that we living in is kind of a lie or an illusion, and they're playing the same story. And it's kind of coming to the conclusion that you don't want to be involved in that story. So for me personally, I want to create my own life in my own parameters, and just see things and experience life for at the best of my ability. And like I said before, the more that I want to dive into that and get into these different interests and talk to all these people and different exercises or read different books or different videos or whatever it is, just expanding my horizons, the more I'm just like, what this the truth is stranger than fiction. Like this is a crazy ass reality. Like Socrates said it best: the more, I'm paraphrasing, the more I know, the more that I don't know. And it's true. Like the more that the more that I learn, the more that I'm like, oh shit, dude, like we're just primates that wear clothes. It really comes down to that, but that doesn't take away from it. I think that actually adds to it. Like there's life is a never-ending mystery, and to some people that's scary, but to me that's actually comforting, because that means we're all on equal playing field, you know? Like we're all in this mystery together when nobody knows what's going on. That's comforting to me because that means nobody's better than anybody. Like we're all here just confused monkeys that wear clothes. So like let's just have some fun and let's not take this too seriously. That's my viewpoint.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. We're all just throwing darts in the dark, as I say, and hoping that we hit something near the target.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
speculating about things, and there's a quote. I can't remember who said it. It was, I think it was Werner Heisenberg or some physicist, like a pretty smart dude, and he said not only is the universe stranger than we conceive, it's stranger than we can conceive. So
Mm.
we can't even conceive how strange it is. Even if we could, it's beyond our ability to see and to understand just how crazy and just, yeah, like you said, it is a mystery. And
Mm-hmm.
my good friend Eric, he says reality is psychedelic. He says just everyday regular reality, when you look at it from the right point of view, when you're
Yeah.
present and aware, like a tree is psychedelic. If you ever stop to look at a tree, you don't even have to be stoned. You
No.
just need to be present, fully present with the mind silent. Look at a tree. That's fucking psychedelic, my friend. I mean,
Yeah.
all of nature is psychedelic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that we have this, what is it called? Like a consensus trance. Like we're in a trance, right? And that's the unconscious living, right? Um, we think we're awake. We think that we're making decisions, but really we're just going on autopilot, and it's all unconscious. It's all just programming. And when you become conscious, or when you start to become conscious, you realize just how much of your deeply held beliefs and opinions are complete nonsense, like
Yeah.
Socrates, right? The more you know, the more you realize how little you know, and how what you thought you knew was just throwing darts in the dark, just speculation, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It just comes down to, like you said, just paying attention. Like, the trees are amazing. We sound like hippies right now. Oh yeah, trees, man. But it's true, because trees are, if you pay attention to a tree, a rock, whatever it is, a bird chirping, like just simply pay attention to this beautiful reality that we're in. That's the first step of awakening and becoming conscious. And then you can pay attention to everything else in your life, like pay attention to people more and listen to people more, or pay attention to yourself and your own habits. It is because the majority of people that aren't conscious or aren't looking at life from the outside, or just they're just not awake, are just not paying attention. I think it's just everybody just lives on autopilot. And it takes like that's just how we've been conditioned. Like we've grown up like to be on autopilot. But there are certain people out there that kind of see through that facade. And that's who I try to speak to, man. I try to like see people that have a different perspective and they see through the facade. And I like to get their story because there's not a lot of people that have that viewpoint on life. And everybody approaches it, or has everybody comes to that conclusion in different ways. Like some people, uh, it's through some kind of, entheogenic substance. In some people, it's through intense meditations, like regular meditations. Some people, it's just like Ramana Maharshi. He just like all of a sudden one day, nothing, not induced by any kind of chemical substance or any kind of practice. One day, when he was a child, he had this experience of like he was dying, like he just died, like he had this like sober ego death. And I don't know the full story, but he had that experience and it changed his life forever. And he's not alone. Like I spoke to Ajahn Sana, who was this monk. He was a monk. I mean, he was 15 and he was on the bus. And I guess just one day he just saw that something came over him where he just realized that like kind of like the mindset we're speaking about. He just realized that we're all just living this story, this illusion. Everybody's just going to and fro and living this crazy story, and for what? And we all take it way too seriously. So there's just something that switches in our brain when you come to that conclusion. And I want to figure out what that is, because it's the truth. It's knowing, it's seeing through the matrix, essentially. Of the matrix of our reality is deconditioning yourself from our the way that we've been brought up. It's essentially just seeing through the propaganda. So my question to you is like, how did you come to this? Like, is this something where it was induced by like some kind of psychedelic substance, or you just like were born like this? Like, what happened?
Oh man, yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that I've pondered a lot. Recently, I've come to realize that this path for me started a long, long time ago. But um, in reality, like I would say that my big shift happened 7 years ago. I think before that, there were a lot of events in my life, a lot of encounters and events that were priming me for what happened to me 7 years ago. But really, 7 years ago is when I realized that I was on this path and that I started to pursue it earnestly. And so 7 years ago for me was a very strange experience. I was sitting at my job in a cubicle. At the time, I was doing the kind of work that didn't require a lot of thinking, so I was able to listen to podcasts a lot, and I think that that was a huge catalyst. As corny as it may sound to some people, Joe Rogan was a big part of this experience for me because I was listening to a lot of his podcasts. Podcasts with like Graham Hancock, Neil deGrasse Tyson, all these different people from different areas. And I was basically filling myself up with all these different perspectives. And one day I was sitting in my cubicle doing some work, and I started to ponder like a pretty basic question. Like, I was listening to a podcast and I just started thinking like, why are we so fucked up? Like, why are human beings so messed up? Like, and I started to think, like it seems like we have all these blessings where, we have technology, we're intelligent, we can figure things out that no other animal can figure out. We have hindsight, we have the ability to create conceptual models of reality. And then through those models, we can devise or understand the inner workings of nature itself. Like, how are we struggling? Why is the world going to this place when we have so many gifts and talents? And so that's kind of like the train of thought I was following. And the only way I can describe it is, as I was following these thoughts, it brought me to a place beyond thinking. And I had never been there before. Inside myself, in my own mind or in my psyche, whatever you want to call it, I arrived at a place where there were no thoughts. There was just this almost like an experience of how simple and clear and beautiful all of reality and all of life is. And I was overwhelmed. Like, I started to tear up, right? And I
Oh.
felt like I was on ecstasy because in my youth, I did quite a bit of that stuff. So I thought for a minute, I was like, did somebody put something in my water, or did somebody drug me? Because I felt like uh, just bliss and love. And I wanted to like stand up on my desk and just yell to everybody, like, it's all good. I want to hug people. Like, it was powerful. And again, more powerful than any experience I had had on psychedelics or any other substance up until that point. So,
Mm.
I spent the next few months living like that in total bliss. Like, anger was gone, sadness was gone, depression was gone. It was all gone. Nothing was able to bring me down. And during those 2 months, I started to try to figure out what the hell happened to me, right? Was I having was I mentally ill? Did I experience a psychotic break? So I started to look into it. And sure enough, I mean, as soon as I started to search things online, it's like the universe just brought me right to what I needed to hear, what I needed to see. Like, it started to show me books like As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, or The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And these books were telling me that what really determines the quality of your experience is not your outer circumstances, but your opinions and perspective on those circumstances. So
Yep.
you and I could go through the same series of events. You could come out and say, wow, that was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. What a wonderful thing. And I could come through the same experiences and think, wow, that was shit. What a miserable fucking time that was. Same experience, totally different experiences. The only difference is the perspective. And basically from that point on, it was like one discovery led to another, and I'm still on that path, discovering things every day. Your channel, for example, the conversations that you've had, the couple episodes that I've watched and stuff, are like, again, all reinforcing everything that I find and stumble upon, and everybody that I meet and discuss, have conversations with. It's all affirming the stuff that I am coming to. So it's been a really beautiful experience, and I've been privileged to, I wouldn't say help, but be a part of other people's awakenings as well. My wife, a couple of friends of mine that, and even some of them, it's like, you don't know that you had an effect on these people until like years later. I had a friend tell me the other day that comments I made to her husband, like, 5 years ago, changed his entire outlook on stuff. And I had no clue. It was just like a throwaway comment that I made to him. So yeah, I've been really blessed, and then blessed to meet people like yourself. Like when you open up, your heart and your mind, and you just ask, right? You just ask, God, the universe, the one, you just ask, like, just show me what I need to know. Fuck, man.
Yeah.
It shows you.
Yeah,
It
that's
shows
real.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta have real faith in whatever that is, that, God, the one, the universe, the energy, the force, whatever you believe in. You have to have real faith in whatever that is, that there is something else going on behind the scenes, and whatever that is will guide you in the right direction. But you have to have real faith. It can't be like this, it can't be like this fake love. It has to be like true, like, you know Jesus take the wheel type shit, just like, true, like, show me the way. And
Yeah.
I know what you mean. There is something where, because I have recently done that, and just like, I'm just like, show me the way. I'm just a servant, and that's what I believe. I just believe I am a servant here. I'm nobody. Like, I might think I'm like, oh, I got a YouTube channel, podcaster, I'm my Gary Haskins, whatever kind of label that I want to put on myself. But I really do believe that I'm none of those things, and I'm just a servant, and um, I serve through whatever inspiration that I have during the day. Like, I believe that, like Joe Rogan talked about this actually. I think it might have been with Graham Hancock. I don't know. How ideas, we're just like the arbiters of ideas, where we're just like these vessels that this, I don't know if you want to say other entities, the force communicates with and uses us to get these ideas out, and they come into fruition through us. And that's kind of how I see my life, man. I see us as just these servants that serve the greater energy in this world. And if you open yourself up to being a servant, and be truly okay with just being a servant, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually like an honorable divine thing in my eyes. Like, to serve is like, that's what we're here for. And if you open yourself up to that, and you just let go of your ego, then you're just like, your life is just going to open up and be beautiful in ways that you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, man. Surrender.
So
Right.
yeah, that's what it is. Surrender. You say, oh, just go ahead, surrender. Perfect. The perfect word. It's just surrendering yourself to the greater good, the greater forces, the powers, not the powers that be, well, the real powers that be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're having this semantical game already about, the force, the one, God, whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because there's been so many names for it, so many words, and none of them really hit the mark, but all of them, have their own value, or their own sort of, they all come close maybe to some people. But for me, the one that I like to use the most is the one, because it, to me, to my understanding of this force, it really is, singular in nature, all encompassing. It's in you, it's in me, it's in the emptiness around us. It's in everything, beyond everything. It shapes everything out of itself, and it is intelligent. Which is why I think a lot of theists get sucked into that trap of intelligent design, because it's hard to deny. Even scientists will have difficulty denying that there's an intelligence at work here. uh, it certainly is not the intelligence of an invisible sky daddy, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That's not the conception of the divine that I have. The one is not an invisible sky daddy when I refer to it. It's more like the Tao.
Yep.
It's more like nature.
Mm-hmm.
Nature itself. If you talk to a hardcore atheist, it's like, well, do you believe in nature? What is that? Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about nature, because really, all these other conceptions of God to me are just metaphors. They're just our attempts to represent this greater force, which we now call nature.
Yeah.
So look at evolution, right? That's intelligent design. That's far more intelligent than some invisible sky daddy taking some dirt and making a human out of it and blowing in it. Like, to me, the painstaking methods that are followed by nature, the process of elimination, of survival of the fittest, so to speak, in terms of what's best adapted to this environment, and this slow process of just constantly refining life until it becomes an ape that wears clothes, as you say, right?
Mm-hmm.
This pinnacle, in my opinion, of the intelligence, because we're not better than other life forms, pardon me, but we are different. And I think it doesn't serve us to deny that we are special in a way, in terms of our abilities and our aptitudes as living creatures. Does that give us a right to subjugate other life forms? No. Does it give us a right to pillage resources and destroy the earth? No. In my opinion, it's the opposite. It gives us greater responsibility as stewards, as custodians of the planet.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, anyways, to me, it's like you said, it's amazing. It's a wonder, and the more you learn, the more you see the patterns, and the more you realize that it's just this mystery. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful just mystery, and our brains aren't meant to understand that, but that's good. I don't think, like I said, if you could understand it, then you'd be God. You'd be like this divine thing. But we're just, like I said, we're just human beings, and that's okay. That is still very divine in itself. And I like, getting back to the topic of, like, we'll just say God, but like, when you say the word God, the popular opinion of that word is people do think of the sky daddy,
Mhm.
like that conception of that God, but that's just like, that's missing the point. Like, so I never went to church. I never, like, my parents, I was never raised in a religious household. So like the idea of like Catholicism and the Western idea of God, it was never attractive to me because I was never exposed to it. So I was pretty much by nature a agnostic atheist, but there was at one point I was like a firm atheist, and I was just so against people believing in all of these dogmas. And so I can understand where atheists come from. And then I got into my spirituality, and these psychoactive substances, and meditation is huge, and yoga, really whatever, just diving into the depths of my mind and myself. And then I realized what God actually is. And I realized that atheists are they're halfway to the truth. They're not fully there, because the first step to becoming to know what God actually is rejecting other people's idea of what God is. And that's, all of these popular dogmas that we have. So that's the first step, and that was my first step. But the second step is realizing that just because their idea isn't right doesn't mean there isn't a God. And that's what
Right.
I realized. And I came to that conclusion. It took a lot of soul searching for me to do that. But when you come to realize that what God is, I mean, I can't really describe it because nobody can, but the best of my ability is that it's like you said, the Tao. It's the way. It's what pushes us through time. Essentially, it's the order of, it's the unseeable centrifugal force that runs through us, especially, and everything else around us. It's this force that propels us to I guess take action, to build this world, to create order out of chaos. It's
Mm.
that kind of force, and it's an unseeable, unknowable, unimaginable force. But if you recognize that it's there and kind of feel its presence and see its presence, and that's why nature is so important in getting out there in nature, because like you can see the order in nature, and like it's its own
Mhm.
organism. And then you're like, wait a second, I am nature. I came from that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're a part of this entire thing. And you're like, oh, that's God. That's the greater, this thing that I don't know what's going on. It's this order that's present not only in the woods or wherever you are in the world, in the entire universe, man. Like the force of God that is present when you're in the middle of the woods going for a hike is the same force that's millions of light years away, that's causing all of these supernova explosions, and having uh, suns collide with each other, and black holes, and these. And then it's also the same force that's present at a micro level when it comes to, like, cellular order, and atomic order, and string theory. It's all this enormity of order, and then it's like we're in the middle of that, like and then it comes to us, and we just get to witness that, the micro and the macro level. It's a beautiful thing. And what makes me believe in that too is I see, like, I believe all that order comes down to vibration and patterns, like energy. And if you can see these, like, I've seen images of like the similarities of like the shapes of galaxies to like the shapes of like like a cellular shape, or an atomic shape. Like we all share this. It's like the Fibonacci sequence. It's like present no matter how big an object is or how small an object is. There's some kind of weird order in this universe, that no matter what the size or the locality of these objects, there's something that's just there and it's present, and it's like it's the image that's there. And that order to me is the proof that there's something else going on. You know what I'm saying?
100%, man. 100%. Yeah, I like to say that if you want to get to know the creator, you have to study the creation,
Mm,
right? And that's what you're
yeah,
describing. You look at nature, you look at reality from the micro level to the macro level, and you see all of the, let's call it symmetries, right? Because it's
yeah,
like you were saying, right? The way that the atom is built is kind of similar to the way that a solar system is built, with different particles orbiting around the sun, if you will. Um, you see the same image or the same pattern, whether it's in the very small world, the very large world, or even everywhere in between. You see the same kind of image, and yeah, that's the image of God, or whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I get where you're coming from. And the more you study it, I think from a scientific point of view, the more it pushes us to conclude that there is an intelligence there. And again, not a Bronze Age tribal god intelligence, something far beyond our comprehension. But we can begin to comprehend it by studying the creation. And what you said about order and chaos is a great example. The early universe was made up of like three elements, right? How do we get from three elements to 100 and however many we have now? Well, it's all this same process of creation and destruction, creation and destruction. That's how the one refines itself and creates new forms.
mm,
Because you start off with three elements, you've got these very basic stars that eventually burn through their fuel. And as they finish exhausting their fuels, they begin to collapse in on each other. And as they're compressing, they're creating heavier elements. And that's how heavier elements were born, right? So without those early stars going supernova and spreading all of their seeds, if you will, across the universe, there wouldn't be the right elements for us to be here. So the reason that we're here is because a bunch of stars eventually blew up and created new elements so that the universe could shape those new elements into all kinds of amazing things, like
yeah,
human beings and animals and plants and things that couldn't have existed at the very beginning of the universe, right? So the process of creation is actually of creation and destruction. You
yeah,
can't have creation without the destruction of these huge stars. And those stars that blow up, when they die, they see new life. And that's the whole cycle. You see it on Earth, you see it in the stars, you see it everywhere. Like as things die and decompose, they give food to new organisms. It's the same pattern, as you said, the same image, if you will, at the heart of everything. And everywhere you look, it's the same if you know what you're looking for.
yeah. And that's why the image of the symbol of yin and yang is so like it hits us, because that is, if you want to talk about order and how the universe is I guess you can say constructed, it's that it's simple life and death, destruction and creation. Like that is getting to the core of the way. It's from life comes death, and from death comes life. It's just on, off, yes, no. It's that, like that's the basis of our reality, man. And once you understand that, like that's a gnostic idea, like the polar opposites. I mean, once you understand that's how life works, you kind of I guess you can use that to your advantage. You realize that you can't have one thing without the other thing, and then from there you can kind of work your magic. I don't really know how to describe it, but like, you can't have the good without the bad, so it's just like you have to work with that and come to that conclusion. Everybody just wants the good in their life, and they just want to feel good. But getting back to like what we talked about before with exercise, and it's the same concept of like making yourself feel bad and putting yourself through shit is gonna make yourself feel better in the long term. It's just kind of like, it's order, man. It's that same order, the polar opposites, yin and yang. It's present in our lives, and it's present in the the beginning of our universe.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I actually really love that symbol too. I think it's one of the most elegant ways to encapsulate this concept of the one, right? Because it's like it looks like two opposite halves, but really it's one circle.
Yeah.
And the best part is, in the black, in the death, there's a little circle of life,
Mm,
right? And then in the big, white half, there's a little circle of death, because that's really how it is. There's no separation between life and death. Death and life are one. And, there's a little bit of destruction in creation, and there's a little bit of creation in destruction. And so it really Yeah, it really ties it all together really nicely. I think that's a good symbol. And I often think like, what would the world be like if that was the sort of symbol of Western civilization instead of the cross, right? But then I think the cross is a similar symbol. I mean, it's the intersection of spirit and matter, which is what you are, right? And at your
Mm,
center is the self, or the Christ consciousness, or whatever. Again, different words for the same idea or the same reality. So all of these symbols are pointing towards the same reality. All of these religions, in my experience, in my research, and in my sort of experiments, all of these religions contain the same essential truths. Sometimes they're a little harder to find, like, digging through the Bible versus reading the Tao Te Ching. Very different. The Tao Te Ching you can read in an afternoon and it will give you all the good shit. Right,
mm.
direct injection. Just fucking give it to me right here. You might
Hmm.
not understand it intellectually right away, but if you keep reading and contemplating it, it's going to open doors, like some of the doors that have been opened for you, obviously, through
Hmm.
different experiences.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think the Tao is something that I'm happy to see more and more people talk about it. And yeah, because it's one of those concepts, or one of those symbols that really can open eyes if you understand it.
Mm. Yeah, I have to read the Tao Te Ching. It's definitely on my reading list. I don't know why I haven't yet.
Oh, it's all good, man. I mean, so have you been? Because I mean, so here's my question: what has been the most? How can I put this? What's the medium, or what's the avenue that has led to the most productive breakthroughs for you? Has it been psychedelics? Has it been reading books? Has it been meditating, or a
Hmm.
combination of all of them? Or is there one that you prefer over the others? Like, is there something that really works for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I dive into. I'd have to say it's meditation, just simple pranayama meditation. Like if you can get rid of all that stuff, it's just simply just quieting the mind and coming to this point that's beyond thoughts. Like I can reach a point where I meditate and it takes like probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes, where I stop my thoughts. And that right there is an extremely powerful thing. It's almost like an ability. And once you can get to that state where it's just simply focusing on my breath, there's just something magical about that. And it's a very, I don't know what it is, man. It's like a samadhi feeling, it's just coming to this like it's just it's just a sense of calmness. And yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, man. I would have to say through just meditation. Like I meditate every day. And I mean, breakthroughs. I get when it comes to. I mean, meditation is more like a lifestyle, so I can
Mhm.
live a happy life and just know where to direct my life. But a breakthrough, like a sudden breakthrough, is definitely through psilocybin mushrooms. Like there's been points. I mean, maybe like one or two trips that I remember just one specific one. It was like my first one big one where it absolutely changed my viewpoint on on life and who I was and what was going on in this world. But yeah, I guess I can't think of any sort of like big breakthrough other than that. I mean, there was one point. Okay, there was one point where I was on mushrooms and I realized that first experience I ever had. I realized that like that universal Christ consciousness, like that connection, like that it was real, and I felt that, like I internalized that, and I almost felt everybody suffering on Earth
Mm.
all at once. It's very, very, very insane. Like I was like, I realized what they meant by Buddhism meant by life is suffering. I was like, oh shit, everyone's suffering. And now I realized that we're all in this together, like we're all human. And that was the biggest thing I got from it. And ever since then, I never forgot about that like no matter what, even if somebody's like being an asshole to me, and they say I don't know, they say like the wrong remark that gets me irked. I have to realize like that person is a human being and they're going through their own struggle, they're going through their own stuff. They might have just like they who knows what they're going through at home, or like what happened the past week or whatever. No, you don't know what somebody is going through, but I know that mostly everybody is going through something shitty in their life. So I kind of like understand people more, and I understand like the human condition more because of that. Like to know that just like nobody's really an asshole deep down. Like nobody's truly like a jerk. I think we're all good people. Like human beings we're all the same. It's just that we're all living in this crazy ass world, and nobody knows what's going on, and we're all just trying to survive. And it kind of like made me be a nicer person. and that was a big breakthrough. Like I saw like our interconnectivity in our suffering. But then there was this other time where I think this was on like a high dose of some kind of cannabis, and I remember specifically I did yoga that day. I'm a huge yoga fan. I think yoga was actually one of the biggest things that enabled me to come to higher consciousness. Like I don't know if it opened some kind of like align my chakras or something, but I don't know why I didn't think of yoga. Yoga is extremely important to my regimen. There's just something about it that like allows you to reach, if you do it correctly and you do it regularly, yoga will allow you to tap into like a higher state of consciousness and just live on that higher state of consciousness like throughout. Like these substances, like chemical substances like psilocybin, like those things are only like quick things, and you go into that space and then you come back out and you're just like, all right, well, I got to go to work on Monday. But yoga allows you to keep that mind state like throughout your entire life. Like if you just do like 20-30 minutes of yoga, align your chakras. I'm not going to act like I know everything about the whole chakra system, but I think there's some validity to it. And so getting back to my story, uh, I did yoga that day, and this was right when I was starting to get into yoga. And I was laying down in bed. I took a high dose of cannabis, and I think it was some kind of edible. I don't know, but I remember I was extremely high, and then I just came to this like realization, like almost like, whoa, like I'm alive right now. And I was just like, I couldn't like come to that fact. I was like, I'm alive. I'm like, oh shit, like this is real. And I got up out of my bed, and I was just like looking. I was just like in my basement, and I'm just like looking around, and I'm like, bro, this is crazy. Like I'm alive, and I couldn't fathom the fact that I was alive, like in that I was, because I remember saying in my head, I was like, I was thinking about like, I was extremely high, and I was thinking like, am I God? Like, what is God? I'm like, oh shit, like if I'm consciousness, that means I must be God. I must be some form of God, and that's when I opened my eyes. I'm like, oh shit, God is consciousness. God is just here and now. And I couldn't like get over that. And like there's something, I don't know if like I said, dude, like I opened up some kind of like my heart chakra, or there's something aligned in my body from that day from doing yoga, but something changed in me that day that allowed me to realize the sanctity of this amazing experience of life. And it's never gone, like I've never got over that. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
maybe like your experience that you had at the office. I've never gotten over that experience of just like feeling just so engrossed. Like there's times obviously where I get, like life catches up to me and I lose track of it, but I always come back to that feeling of like I am God. I'm not like full. Right, so like when I say I'm God, that sounds like the most egotistical thing in the world, right? When you say that to a normal person, or like when I say that like, at all, but it doesn't mean that like I am this divine thing that I make the rules and I create. It means that we are made, like the Bible says, we're made in God's image. We are like, I see us as like a part of this divine creation. We are just like a part of this, which that in itself is divine. Just being a simple part of the God's creation, like God's servant, that is divine. And that night that I was induced under this high dose of cannabis, I realized what that meant. I was like, oh, I am what it means to be God. Because I heard people say that before online, like, you are God, you are a God, act like one, or something like that. And I was like, I was like, well, that doesn't even make any sense. But then I realized, like, oh, we're just like a simple part of it. And what we are through that creation, through God, is a human being. And being a human being is being the creative aspect of the universe. Like we're able as human beings, like you said, we are different than like animals, or we're different than trees or whatever. And our difference lies in our ability to create. Like I'm creating this time that we're doing right now. Like this is insane. Like a bear or an animal would not know how to do any of this. This is so far beyond any animal's comprehension that it is in a way godly. It is divine because we're capturing time. We're capturing our conversation forever. So what I'm trying to say is that being a human is divine because we are able to create our own reality. We're able to create things out of essentially nothing. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
we are the creative aspect of the universe. We're like, we're not able to create the whole universe, but within the parameters of our matrix or reality, we can do we can create whatever we want. When a dog can't do that, a cat can't do that. Not saying that we're better than these animals. We all serve our own purpose on this planet. Everything, every single organism. But our purpose is to create. Or some people may see it as destroying. But like, I think that's just part of the process. Like, I think we just have to create a better world where we don't destroy the world through our creations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm glad you said it, not me. So I'm not the one blaspheming, but yeah, we are, we are God,
Yeah.
and we are in God's image. You're right, because like, yeah, the whole process that I was just describing about, the intelligence and the sort of method to creation that you find with evolution, and the fact that these stars go supernova and so on and so forth. We're doing that on a micro level, as you said, right? In the same way, where we cut down some trees, we turn those trees into those doors behind you.
Yeah.
No other creature that we know of on this planet can do that. I mean, beavers can build dams, but they're not running logs through a sawmill. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not
Yeah.
devising tools and becoming more ingenious in the way that they work. And they're also running on instinct. They don't have the ability to step back and go, how can I build a better dam? They just do it. It's just, they're fully present and they're fully wired in, and they're more connected to the one, to God, than we are, because as children, we're in Eden, right? There's no death, there's no past or future. Children, I've had three, I've watched them grow up, and they are fully immersed in the present moment, and they are one with everything. The
Hmm.
environment is an extension of them. They don't view themselves as separate from their environment. They can't even really distinguish between self and parent. So that, if you put a little baby up, or a toddler up to a mirror next to you, and you point to their face and you say, "Who's that?" They'll actually look at you and point to you to say, "I'm you." They don't have that distinction. They are at
Hmm.
one with everything. And then, because of our ingenuity as humans, I think, with culture and memes, ideas, as we say, um, these things create illusions that make us think that we're separate, so that it's self and nature, like you and I are not nature. Where did we come from? What created us? Right, this whole concept of God somehow creating us out of clay and stuff. It's like, no, no, no. I mean, that's a good metaphor, because yeah, we are made out of the same elements. I mean, we're made out of stardust, just like the ground and the earth and the rocks and everything. So I get the metaphor, but to think that we're somehow separate or different from nature is the central sort of barrier to that experience of oneness. There's something really cool about your story as well, because I have friends who are into this kind of stuff, and intellectually they're on board with the idea that it's all one, that the entire universe, that we're all connected, interconnected, and stuff like that. It's one thing to understand it and believe it intellectually. It's a totally separate thing to experience it the way that you did on that cannabis trip or on the mushroom trip, where it's no longer conceptual or intellectual. You actually feel and experience yourself as one with the whole of creation.
Yeah.
And after you have that experience, of course, you can't forget it, Gary. I mean, once that door is open, you can shut it, but it's always there, and you always know where it is. You can always go back to that place of what you can call being in Eden, in a way, right? Being in the
Yeah.
present moment, which is eternal. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is experiencing it, not just knowing it or understanding it mentally, but actually feeling it as a reality. And then faith isn't required, because you know it as much as I know that I'm talking to you right now. It's not this conceptual thing. You've experienced the truth of it, and after that, there's really nothing that's going to change that or convince you otherwise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like reclaiming something that I've lost. It's like, when they said that children are in the present moment. It's almost like we lose that, and it's when you come to these revelations, it's like you regain that almost, I guess it's like almost innocence. You regain that just feeling of being connected, and it's a beautiful feeling. It really is. I mean, sometimes it's scary though, because like I felt that on the mushrooms. Like I felt like how like I am connected to everybody. I was like, oh, but like that means everybody's going through shit. Like we're all just going through all like we're all just suffering. Like, I felt that connection. Like, it is blissful to know that we're all connected, but then it's also not, because on the other side of that coin is just the the horrible things that people do to each other and then inflict on each other, and like, or that just like we don't even inflict, just like disease, injuries, all of the suffering. I felt that as well. So it's just, it is also, it's beautiful, but it's also daunting at the same time. um but it really just comes down to, at the end of the day, not taking it so seriously, being more like a child, like you said, just like, we can't take this so seriously, man. Just don't get lost in the thinking that your life is gonna be forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what an idea that I try to keep into my head too. Is like, we can come up with all these revelations about life and try to figure it out and try to learn stuff, but really, it's for me, it's just like, well, don't take you know don't get too lost in that. Like, don't take it too seriously. Like, don't try to look for truth too much. Like, there is something special about also staying grounded and just being in the present moment. Like, I remember I was doing dishes the other day, and I was like, you know what, this is actually a divine thing, like doing dishes, because
God's work.
yeah, it's God's work, because it grounds me. It shows that, like, no matter like how important you think you are, like, oh, I got this podcast, or I make X amount of money, or whatever idea you think of your head, you know what, you're gonna have to do the dishes, you're gonna have to do laundry, you're gonna have to do the dirty work, and that's humbling. And I was like, yeah, dude, like, this is all necessary. Like, this is like all of these things that we have to do in life, it's necessary, and it humbles you and keeps you grounded. And if I was just thinking about, the enormity of the universe and black holes and string theory and how we're all God, all this, if I was thinking about that like all day, every day, I don't know, I feel like that's losing the point. That's like you're being attached to trying to figure something out. But
Mm.
the thing is, it's just like, that's just okay. So getting in Buddhism, that's just another attachment. Is like attaching ourselves to this idea of finding the truth, when it's really like a good balance. Like, if you find the balance between, staying up, keeping your mind outside of, conscious, the outside perspective. If you if you It's a balance between, staying balanced with being so far out there in that hippie mindset, and then also staying grounded, and you have kids, taking care of your kids, doing what you got to do as a man, or whatever your role is in this life. It's finding that balance, and in that balance, I think, lies happiness. It
Mm.
lies like true, just like being okay with the moment, knowing that whatever comes up, and you know have some fun and stay innocent.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an old like Zen proverb or something. I think it
Mm-hmm.
goes like before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right?
Mm-hmm.
After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It makes no difference. You still got to do the dishes, still got to pay
Yep.
the bills, whatever your duties are, right? You got to perform your duties. But I think what changes is that you begin to view your duties and some of the mundane and maybe less pleasurable tasks in your life as being all part of God's work, as being
Yeah.
all part of the same, your duties, whether it's changing diapers, doing the dishes, your 9 to 5 job, whatever that happens to be. Trying to separate that out from the rest is another illusion. It's all one. Your entire life is your work, and the work that you do for money versus the work that you do for fun or for your passion, like your podcast, it is all on equal footing. There isn't any work that's more noble or glorious than another type of work. And that was something that took me a long time to realize. But, I got to the point where I was doing demolition work and I was really miserable. Like I hated my life. This was probably maybe 15 years ago. And I was like depressed and I wanted out, but I couldn't. I had no other job prospects. I was just stuck. So um, I was in this crawl space doing this demo job and I hated life. And finally I had this I had to shake myself and I had to be like, why do you hate this job so much? What's so bad about this? Right. And that was the first time that I ever stopped to think like, oh, maybe my outlook is the problem. Maybe it's not demolition work that's the issue. Maybe it's the way I think about demolition work. So yeah, that was a big one for me, because that was kind of like the gateway to realizing that all work is noble work if you do it in a spirit of surrender, and also if you're selfless about it, right? Because, well, I'm better than demolition work, is fucking grunt work, is, I'm too good for this or whatever. Be humble. Be humble. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a job. Everybody has, something that they need to do. And it might not seem like the most glorious thing to you, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
So that's what you got, man. So do it again in a spirit of surrender. Don't resist. And, it'll be over. It might not be the most enjoyable work in the world, but it's your work right now. So do it and just get it over with. Right?
Yep. And just be a servant. I love how these revelations have come to you while you're at work.
Well, you spend a lot of hours a day, either on the job or sitting in front of the computer. So
Yeah.
I think that, and it's a disproportionate amount of time. Like, I don't know about you, what you've got going on outside of the podcast, but I have just a regular 9-to-5 job.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's like a third of my day is taken up doing something for a paycheck. And, at times it's more of a struggle than others, but I have to keep reminding myself of what I just told you, which is it's all God's work. And if I do it in a spirit of mindfulness and surrender and just do the best job I can, then I can let everything else go. I don't have to worry about what's going to happen, the results of my work or anything like that, because it doesn't matter. That's out of my hands.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me. Selfless action, doing things and just focusing on the action itself and not worrying about, am I going to get the job, or am I going to get, are people going to think I did good? It's like, who cares? That's not up to you to decide. The results of your actions are out of your hands. The only thing that's fully in your hands is your actions themselves. So do them, rejoice in doing them as much as you can, and let the chips fall where they may. And that reduces a lot of anxiety, at least in my world.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just like you said, it comes down to perspective, man. There's so much power in just being able to look at something in a new light. And that's what we both embody, I guess. That's we're both trying to get the message across. And it really is, man. Like, if everybody knew that fact, man, we live in a different world. Like, it's just it's like a switch, being able to just like, oh, it's not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's a power. It is like a superpower. Just being able to it's like taking a new frequency or a new vibration. And yeah, I don't know, because I think the same thing too.
Yeah, it's like I'm always trying to come up with metaphors, because I always, I do talks and stuff like that. And I'm always trying to think of like, how can I best explain this so that people get it? And the latest one that I came up with was like, when you go to the theater, right, and you're in your seat and you're watching the play from your seat, whatever seat that may be. Well, now stand up and go sit over there and see what the play looks like. See if you can see something different, right? It's like switching seats.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at your life from the point of view of Oliver, or from Gary's point of view. Why don't you try moving to that seat over there and seeing what your life looks like from there, right?
Yeah.
And then from here, and then from there. And what happens when you're able to do this is you realize that it's not just black and white. It's not objective. It's not concrete. It's really how you look at it that shapes it. Not all of it, obviously. I mean, there are certain things that happen, like you get sick, right? I mean, that's a reality. But how you respond to the sickness, how you choose to look at it. Like, I have a friend of mine who she helps people declutter. And so that's like her business. And she's had a customer lately I think he's got ALS, or some kind of debilitating degenerative disease that's going to eventually lead him to his death. And he is an evangelical Christian, and he views his entire life as a punishment, divine punishment from God. Everything, all the bad things that are happening to him, his wife leaving him, all these things, he chooses to filter all of these events through the lens of, I'm bad, I'm a born sinner, this is God's way of punishing me for what I've done. Whereas another person could go through those exact same things and go, you know what, that really sucks, but I've got a little bit of life left and I'm going to make the best of it, right? And so the same condition, the same situation, you can filter it through any number of different narratives and it will have a totally different effect on you.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. That's insane. Is that what evangelical Christians think, that they were here just to be punished?
Well, when you factor in the concept of original sin and the fact that they believe, and again, I could be misrepresenting their views. I don't really know a whole lot about evangelicals, but a lot of Christian denominations have this concept of you're born a sinner. Well, if you're born a sinner and you are told that from birth, Imagine the effect it's going to have on your perspective, and then as a result on your experience of reality, right? You're going to see the world
Yeah.
very differently, and you're going to see yourself very differently, and you're probably not going to feel very good. You're probably not going to love yourself. And your relationship to yourself, I believe, is the foundation for all other relationships. So if you hate yourself deep down inside, even if you're not consciously aware of it, when you get into a relationship with another person, even if you love that person, your love is going to be toxic because you don't
Hmm.
love yourself. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to express love to another person? So I think, some of these people, whether they're evangelicals or Catholics or whoever, if they believe that they're naturally inherently sinful, good luck. That's an
Yeah.
uphill battle.
Yeah. Right. You just think you're bad by default.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that also opens up another possibility, which is why try to be good if I'm just bad by default?
Mm.
Go rob a bank, ask Jesus for forgiveness, go to jail for 20 years. Like, I think in the States, my apologies, I'm from Canada, but I read a statistic that showed like Christians being way overrepresented in prison populations. And it's almost like this idea that all you have to do is come to Jesus and all will be forgiven,
Mm.
is almost like a cop out for certain people. It's like, oh, well, I did some bad shit, but I have an out. I can just
Yeah.
go back to Jesus. And it's like, have you read the New Testament? Have you read the Gospels? You should probably do that one day because you might have a different idea.
Yeah. Right. I think it's good to just take. I take bits from every religion and every single belief system is, I think, has its gems, and I try to blend that all into my own life, and because there is, like, the aspect of Christianity of, God is love, sacrifice, and, like you said, spirit and matter with the cross. But I blend that. I'm like a spiritual Buddhist yogi. That's how I see myself.
That's the way
Like
to go, man. You're
yeah,
building your own.
yeah, exactly. Because, like, if you get lost in any one of those things, it's just it's you're missing the point of life. Like, you really are, like, this, because it's you getting lost in the symbols when everybody has different situations that they're born into, different locations, different people in their life. Just every single person is different. So if you, like, try to follow this dogma that is, it's like a guidebook, and you suck yourself into these, like, these strict guidelines of how to live and how to see your life, you're missing the point of your own life. Like, you take what you need from these very valuable lessons in all of these things. You take what you need, and you take those symbols and you interpret that and you put it into your own life and you make it work for you.
Mm.
When people just get lost in being like, I don't know, just like I mean, I can't judge anybody. Everybody's living their own life, but to me, I don't see the point of being 100% Christian or even Buddhist or even 100% anything, because there's so much more, like we talked about, dude. The universe is this big, like, but, like, everybody's viewpoint is this big.
Yeah.
So it's just like, why constrict yourself to that? Like, why not try to take all of this for what it is? That's how I kind of try to live my life. It's like, I just try to take it all in, and just, for whatever this whole entire experience is, as me in this body in this incarnation, I try to absorb all of it that I can. That's why I started this thing, man. This entire show that I started is an excuse for me to learn more. And I figured, well, I might as well record it and put it online so other people can learn with me. But excuse me, these conversations that I have with people aren't regular coffee shop conversations. So I'm like, the only way that I'm going to have these conversations and hopefully reach some kind of revelation, or, just have some fun on a Sunday night, is by literally saying I have a podcast. It's like, it's a perfect storm for me, because I it's just deepening. Like, even though I'm doing this, like, as like a work, kind of, it's really not. Like, it's me deepening my understanding of the universe through talking to these people. And when else am I going to be able to, first of all, have a conversation with you, which I'm glad I am, man. I'm glad I met you. So, like, it's opening up doors to meeting cool people. And so when else am I going to be able to do that without having this work? You know what I mean?
Totally.
But what I'm trying to say is that it's my own, if my own belief, my belief system is just experience life for all that it is um you know, the good and the bad, all energies. Like I like to any kind of new yogic, like I like to learn about yogic principles and like practices that people have, like yeah, like sensory deprivation tanks, different kind of holotropic breathing, like whatever it is, just experience these different states. Maybe it just might be once, but I think life is about just going through these experiences and taking what you need, and then from there building a better life. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know where do we even start on that point. I don't
Doesn't
remember.
matter. It doesn't matter. I'm with you, man. Yeah, I think I was correct in my original feeling about you. I think we're on the same page more closely than I anticipated. I mean, yeah, this is the DIY approach, right? Do make your own religion. Fuck other
Yeah.
people's religions. That's for them. That's for
Mm-hmm.
the people, and it's not even for them, but that's not our problem. Like you said, it's not our place to tell people what to do. Um, yeah, find what works for you. You already have a truth. It's in here, right?
Yeah.
And so the more you understand your own truth, the more you can work to support it and bring it out into this world through your works, like this podcast, which is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And the results of the podcast, whether you get 1 million subscribers or not, makes no difference because you're not doing it for that. You're doing it for the experience, for the knowledge and the conversations and the insights and all that stuff. So that's exactly why I started my channel. It's exactly why, yeah, I mean, I started making videos as a way to hold myself accountable, because when I first started it, I would do these like daily bread videos where I would share like a quote from something that I'm reading or that I really enjoy, and then I would just make a short video about like that quote, right, like 5 minutes. And so that was my way of making sure that every single day I was immersing myself, even if only for 10-15 minutes, in something that fills my bucket, that inspires me, that makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an exercise and as a way of holding myself accountable, the YouTube channel is great. And then as a bonus side effect, I got to start meeting people through the channel, like people that I would consider friends now, that I have conversations with and that I've learned from. So it's an amazing tool to have the internet, to have a platform that anybody can have a channel or a show. And through that show, they can create connections and
Yeah.
deepen their own truth, man. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day too. The concept of the internet and how we take it for granted and how wonderful of a technology it is. I think I've heard this before, like what's the next big invention for the humans, or what's the greatest? It's the internet, man. We already have it. Like simple fact that I can have a conversation with you. Um, you're miles away from me in a different country that I can't even go to right now. And the simple fact that I can have a conversation with you pretty much instantaneously, it's magic. If you were to take this technology and show it to somebody that lived in medieval Europe, they'd be like, "What the sorcery? What is this?" You'd have to explain what a microphone is, what a camera is, what a TV, a computer screen is, like
They'd
all of
burn you
these
at the
things.
stake before you could get through your
Yeah,
explanation. You'd be
yes,
on fire.
I would be a sorcerer. Exactly,
Yeah,
man. So
exactly.
it's something that we take for granted. Like if you just sit down and think about like what we have in our life, I I don't ever have to worry about water. Um, I have food. Like I've never been hungry in my life. Uh, it's the things that we take for granted in our life. It's 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 kind of astounding, and everybody gets unhappy. Like it's all these excuses, but like when you really think about it and you're grateful for like all of these, the time that we live in, which is insane. It's like, how can I ever be unhappy with my life? Like there's just so much magic around me, and there's just so much abundance around me. That's, and getting back to perspective, it's it's just like, how could I ever be unsatisfied with the
Mm.
position that I'm in, man? Like this is this opportunity, like this current moment, October 18th, 7:08 p.m. it's it's a blessing, dude. It's crazy that the things that we have in our life, it would be unimaginable to somebody that lives in the hunter gatherer societies. It's like we're living like kings, but yet we're still unhappy. It's like,
Oh man.
what do we need? What does it take for us to be happy? Because it's obviously like we have everything that we need. I never had to worry. I never was hungry in my life. Maybe I
Yeah.
missed one meal, two meals, but I was never like gone days without eating or like been malnourished. I'm like, isn't that enough? Is that not enough to be happy for everybody? You know what I mean? So that's
Totally.
what it is, dude. It's perspective. We
Yeah.
all just need to be grateful and switch our mindset and like think and be like, just think for a second how lucky we truly are. But that comes with, so getting back to like all this knowledge and like just getting life, taking in life for all that it is, it coming to that perspective, I think comes with knowledge and knowing like what human beings, like where we came from, and you know what the human experience started off as and where we are now. And it's just like, whoa, dude, like I'm so lucky. Like me and you were so lucky to be here and not be, you know, living in the grasslands of Africa in a tribe of 20 people, and just like you're running from tigers and lions and you don't know when you're gonna eat. Like, bro, this is like, this is it. This is like, what more do we really want? Like, yeah, going to work in the morning sucks, but it's just like, well, at least I don't have to worry about my next meal.
Very
Or,
true.
you know, it's like, it's just like
Absolutely.
our priorities in our society right now are so backwards.
So you
And
touched on something really I want to ask you because I want
yeah,
to get your take on this. You know,
hmm,
you've basically nailed it. Materially, we've never had it so good, right?
yeah.
Life expectancies through the roof, technology, convenience, on demand. My kids don't even know what commercials are. They can binge watch an entire fucking series of cartoons without ever seeing a commercial. That,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like, I grew up on cable television. Like,
Hmm.
me and my wife were talking about this. It's like, holy shit, they've never seen commercials. It's like, that's pretty crazy, right? But so we have all of these material goods and advantages and blessings. Yet, as you say, we've never been more miserable, dissatisfied, and in many cases, aimless.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is at the center of it? I mean, I'm sure you've given it some thought. You must have some good theories on this.
The center of our dissatisfaction.
Yeah, despite the fact that modern medicine and all these things, materially, we've never had it so good. Like we live like kings in the medieval age. Like your
Yeah.
diet is a king's diet. I have gout. I was
Hmm.
like, how the hell did I get gout? Oh, because my diet is the same diet that a king in medieval France would be eating. That's how good we have it these days. A peasant like me can eat like a king from a
Yeah.
couple hundred years ago. So despite all of these blessings,
Hmm.
why are the majority of us so unhappy? Why is depression at an all-time high? Why is suicide going up? Why are all these things happening, in your
Yeah.
opinion?
I think it's because we place our where we get happiness in the wrong, we place like how you're going to be happy, like the whole American dream, or like, you know, you get happiness by having X amount of dollars or the money or the yacht or the motorcycle. We think that's where happiness is going to come from, but it's just misplaced. Like that's not actually where we get happiness from. That's just how we were conditioned to think that's what we're going to be happy with. And the problem with that is Buddhism, you know, life is suffering, first Buddhist tenet. We suffer because we become attached, and we mitigate that, the suffering or the attachment. All right, I'm messing it up, but we suffer because we're attached.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we get attached to these things that are that we think are going to make us happy,
Mhm.
and that's what it is. It's just misplaced happiness with pleasure, when those are two separate things. When true, it's not even happiness, it's more so just like contentment of your life, just being okay, knowing that everything's going to be okay. It's just, I guess, freedom.
Yeah.
uh Knowing, just, I guess it's just a sense of just satisfaction in the current moment in your being. You don't get that from a motorcycle or like a boat or something, because eventually those things are going to fade. Everything, that's Buddhism. Again, like life is every
Impermanence.
impermanence, exactly. And if you just become okay with that impermanence, that's the first step to happiness. It's like getting rid of thinking that if I have the house or whatever it is, this is, if I get to this point, then that's going to make me happy. If you just get rid of that idea, not
Mhm.
saying get rid of those actions to facilitate those things, it's just getting rid of that idea that these things are going to make you happy, then that's when you go on the true path to happiness. So
Mhm.
it really just comes down to misplaced, um it's misplaced, what's the word I'm looking for, it's like we misplace our
Priorities,
priorities. That's what it is.
values. Yeah. Yeah.
Misplaced priorities
Yep.
on how we prioritize, on how we get happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you nailed it with the pleasure versus happiness thing. That was one of the earliest realizations that I had after my, what I call my cubicle epiphany. I
Hmm.
realized that I never even knew what happiness was. I'd been chasing it all along and I never stopped to ask, wait a second, what is happiness? And like you said, I confused happiness and pleasure, even though they're very different things, right? I mean, pleasure is a temporary dopamine hit. You know, you get the thing that you were looking for, you get that rush of like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
That rush is short lived. And if you were
Yeah.
depending on that rush to be sustained, you're going to be very shocked and alarmed at the fact that 2-3 weeks later, your brand new car, you don't even notice it anymore. You
Hmm.
drive it every day and you have no pleasure from it, even though you spent years, pining for it, saving for it, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think the confusion between pleasure and happiness is a big one. And as far as what happiness actually is, if it's not pleasure, yeah, I side with you. I mean, I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy, and they have a concept in Stoicism called eudaimonia, which is like a word that we don't have a translation for, but it basically just means like a sense of fulfillment and inner peace, the flourishing of human life. And that's to me what true happiness is. It's not about a sustained pleasure rush. It's about when everything is said and done and there is nothing else, how do you feel? Do you feel content? Do you feel satisfied? Do you feel like you have value, or do you depend on that value, do you depend on external validation for that value? Right? When
Yeah.
you're self-sufficient, you don't need somebody to tell you you're a good person to know you're a good person, and you don't need to get some kind of external achievement to feel good. You just feel good naturally. That's,
Yeah.
to me, that's happiness. And it doesn't matter if your car breaks down or if your kids giving you attitude or whatever the case may be. Inside you feel content and at peace, and that to me is that will transcend the ups and the downs of pleasure and pain, right? Like
Yeah.
because every time you experience pleasure, if that's a peak, there's going to be a valley of equal or deeper depth
Mm.
coming along, right? It's just the law of nature. There, you can't have an up without a down. So finding a way to just kind of have that stability, that baseline, if you will, that to me is true happiness. And when you have
Yeah.
that, yeah, you don't need to chase things. You don't need to be in the rat race because you just feel good anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Just simply existing is enough. Just simply being here for this moment and experiencing just this experience is enough. And I think personally it's being okay with not being okay,
Mm,
because there's gonna be a point where you're not gonna be okay. Like, we're okay now, we're chilling, we're living life, comfortable, got a roof over my head, but eventually there's going to be something that's going to happen to me. But if I know that, that's the first step, and I know that it's going to happen to me. Well, it's like, well, I knew that was going to happen. Like, I might not know the exact circumstance or when it's going to happen, but I knew that I'm going to go through suffering. So, like, I'm
mm,
okay with this. It's temporary. It's just part of the experience.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there is something to that. It's like a grounding. um there's just something to it. I don't know, like, it makes it so that, like, any suffering that I go through, I see it as just like a falsity, like it's all temporary.
Mm,
We latch on to these things. We latch on to these things that we think are gonna make us happy, but it's all temporary. So
mm-hmm.
even the good things are temporary, but the bad things are also temporary. So it's just like, in that impermanence, like you said, is happiness. It's
Mm-hmm.
riding the wave of the ups and the downs. That's true happiness, and just being okay with just being in this experience.
Yeah.
That's just bliss, dude. That's peace. That's being at peace. That's just like, go with the flow, man. That's what they mean.
Yeah, it's funny how all those cliches that we heard, and we used to like scoff at, when you embark on this path and you start to experience some of the things that we've experienced, you realize that those cliches are bang on. I mean,
Yeah.
mind over matter. Oh, yeah, okay, whatever, mind over matter. No, it fucking really is mind over matter. Like
Yeah.
the material circumstances are there, they exist. I would never say that they don't matter, but your mind and the way you look at those circumstances matters more to your
Yeah.
personal experience of it. So yeah, there's all these cliches out there that we roll our eyes and, oh, fucking hippies, but it's like,
Yeah.
actually, one of the things you said that caught my attention too, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Jiddu Krishnamurti. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of him before.
Mm-hmm.
He says his secret is he doesn't mind what happens, right? He doesn't care
Okay.
what happens. So it's like, that's the secret, right? Like, things are going to happen, quote unquote bad things, misfortune, setback, whatever you want to call it. These things will happen. If you don't mind what happens, those things aren't going to knock you off your path or make you miserable, because it's like, yeah, it happened. It's,
Yeah.
I don't mind. Deal
Mm-hmm.
with it, right? The best you can. It's here now, so you can't really resist it anymore. And if you do, all you're doing is causing yourself grief and misery. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a choice.
Yeah, man. I was actually I had that thought today, which is that's great that you said that. I didn't think that those exact words, but I was just like, there's something came over me. I'm like, damn, I really don't give a shit.
The
Like,
art
damn,
of
I
not
just
giving a fuck, right? That was the thing
yeah,
that was trending for a while there. How not to give a fuck. And it's like the key is to learn. It's not about not giving a fuck about anything. It's about
yeah,
learning where to invest your fucks, right?
yeah.
So what
That's a book right
happens?
there.
It is, yeah. I mean, you got to invest them wisely because you have a limited number of them, and you don't want to invest them in things that you have no control over. Like what happens? You don't control what's going to happen tomorrow or even in 5 minutes. So if you invest a lot of concern and worry about that, you're setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah, so
So
trying to control what you can't control, that's just gonna make you
exactly
go
right.
crazy.
That's a recipe for anxiety. So if you invest your concern in things that you actually can control, like your response to things, like your how you respond to the events in your life instead of the events themselves, then all of a sudden you find that you have way more power
Mm,
over your own experience and over the quality of your life. So it's very counterintuitive, right? Because most people are focused on controlling the externals, right? Trying to control the circumstances, the finances, the things that they can't actually fully control because your financial situation is not really yours to control. If the stock market crashes, the economy crashes, there's another COVID lockdown, everybody's unemployed. Well, now you had no control over that. You didn't do anything to cause it, but here you are. So if that's where you place your concern, well, good luck. You're going to
yeah,
have a miserable time.
yep. Yeah, it goes back to like you said, just surrender. There's that. I think that's what Islam. I don't know much about Islam, but that's pretty much like the premise of Islam is just surrendering to Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of power in that, man. It's just surrendering to the force, the powers, the power that is. But but it doesn't mean that we're fully. Because I always get that's that I think of. I'm like, all right, so if we have free will, I believe in free will, but then I also believe in some kind of God. So I'm like, how can those two intertwine? And I think what it is like there is a force that's guiding us, but at the end of that guidance, we make the decision. Like we
Mm-hmm.
can choose to listen to it or not listen to it, and by surrendering, that's how we become susceptible to that energy. Is by saying like, all right, well, I know that I don't have full control, so God, please give me the rest. Show me the way,
Yeah,
and um, that's where that lies, is just in that surrender. Like if we just it's not even like giving up control. It's actually like almost gaining more control by
that's right.
by just saying like, okay, well, I'm going to, if I can't control everything, I'm going to control what I know I can control, and that gives you more control, if that makes sense. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
100%. Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, it's weird. It's counterintuitive. Again, it goes against everything that we're taught. And just to be clear, when we talk about surrender, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, in my case, it's an attitude of surrender. It's not an outward behavior. Like you can surrender internally and still resist, oppression or injustice or, anything like
Yeah,
that. Like somebody's going to come and rob me. I'm not just going to lay down and surrender. Right.
yeah.
It's surrendering internally to the situations and the circumstances that you find yourself in. Externally, it makes you more effective if you surrender internally. If you're resisting internally and you're like bitter and angry about whatever life's thrown at you, you're probably not going to deal with that situation very well. Whereas if you surrender and you're calm and at peace with whatever life is giving you, you're going to see it more clearly and you're going to address it way more effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
Yeah.
you're saying. It gives you more power over external things because you're worrying about the thing inside of you that actually can change things for the better instead of focusing on whatever crap is out there.
Yeah, so it is a blend. It's like there is free will, but there also is guidance from a divine force. And if you just stay on the whole free will side, like you're gonna lose part of the picture. But then if you stay like it's all God, then you're also losing part of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do create our own reality, but not through. It's like not 100%. Like you said, if
Nope.
there's another COVID, we didn't create that. Like I didn't create that. I didn't create the corona. Or
Yeah.
maybe we did. Some people say we did, like through our own unconscious. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me personally, I did not manifest that for my life, but through what happened in these external events, I took what I couldn't control and made my life better. I almost feel like this whole pandemic was it's like a wake up call for people that were paying attention. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you if you if you weren't paying attention, you weren't conscious before, because I like a lot of people. it was like a spiritual awakening. Like I've read a lot of accounts where people like this happened and they're on the path that we're on. Well, I
Hmm.
was on this path before, so like I already was like at peace with myself, I guess to a certain extent. So this shit happened, and I'm just like, all right, well, nothing I can do about it. Like I'm still gonna keep living the life that I'm living and do the best that I can. And to a lot of people, it was a some kind of like some if you weren't like on this mindset or this path, or you didn't know better enough, or you just like you had your you were inside, like you said,
Hmm.
you're outside. If you were inside the bubble, you can cause a lot of suffering to this world and a lot of people, like, and it was through fear.
Hmm.
Fear is what kept us. If you It's like if you weren't already awake before, I don't want to, cliche say awake, but I guess you want to say, if you weren't already conscious before this all happened, it was just gonna like suck you deeper and deeper. I say get lost in the sauce. Like it's gonna take you even more into the sauce. You get
Yeah.
lost into it. And that's where, like, I see that now, like with the same people that are worrying about and looking up coronavirus statistics every single day are the ones that are on Facebook putting up political rants and either the vote for Biden or vote for Trump. It's like, you guys are missing the point, man. Like, don't, like, no, like it comes down to this, dude. It's having this perspective is seeing through all the bullshit, because
Hmm.
we live in this society where there's a lot of bullshit, man, and it comes right from this technology that we have. You can either
Yep.
use it to your advantage, or you can get lost in it. And that the majority of people are absolutely getting lost in this. This essentially comes down to social media.
Hmm.
And what was my original point? I'm going off on a tangent.
Oh, it's
I
all
don't
good.
even.
I like tangents, man.
Yeah, I mean, my point is the pandemic was some kind of event, and it was getting back to the idea of control and not control. It
Hmm.
was the biggest event in my lifetime, at least, where it was like a test for me to uh for my perspective. I'm like, because I knew I wasn't in control at all of that, but throughout the whole thing, maybe for like a day or two, I was a little worried. I was like, oh shit, the world's actually ending. I got a little shook. But like after that day or two, I got through it and I realized I'm still myself. I'm still centered and aligned. I'm still on my mission, and I'm still happy and content. And it was a test, and it actually brought me deeper into my practice, because I'm like, I thought to myself, my own reflection and meditation was, if I can, all of this crazy ass I mean, if you want to say propaganda, but like if this crazy ass fear mongering that's going around in the world is going on, and I can resist it and still be me and still be positive and spread love to the world, and not, it doesn't sway my attitude at all, then I know I'm on the right path. Like I'm doing something right. Like what else could happen? That I mean, maybe a nuclear bomb go off, that would suck. That would definitely affect me. But like that's the worst thing that could happen. Well, what I'm saying is like,
But you would handle it the same way you handled COVID. I mean, it would be a different magnitude of disaster, but I think you would still, again, there's no difference whether it's
yeah,
COVID or a nuclear bomb or, climate change or whatever. Like
yeah.
if you've got this perspective, you're going
It
to go
can't.
through
There's
it.
nothing that can hurt me, and I know that. I mean, even like physically, that's the power, man. It's like I know that no matter what, if we are talking about this divine force of creation that's centrifugal within everything, every single thing that's within us,
Hmm.
then what can really hurt me? Nothing. Like physical pain, temporary. Emotional pain, temporary. It's all gonna fade. Like nothing can hurt what I am at my core. So I don't have to fear anything. And
Yeah.
fear is just another asset of the powers that be control. I see, in a way. Like I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but in a way, whether it's deliberate or not, fear controls people.
Yeah.
So through this perspective of of not being affected, I'm able to not be controlled and able to be independent and live my own life and essentially be free, be happy. That's freedom. It's
Yep.
not being controlled. It's within the parameters of the system that we're in. It's knowing that no matter what happens, it's gonna be okay. That's the
Hmm.
biggest thing. It's like no matter what, no, I wake up every day and I say, no matter what happens, dude, even if I die today, that's fine. Death is safe. Ram Dass said that. He said, death is safe. And I was like, wow, that's okay, so the worst thing that could ever happen to me, right, is I die, right? That's
Yeah.
what everybody's perspective is. It's like if the worst thing that could ever happen to me is I die. Well, I'm like, well, I don't. Is it though?
Yeah, and
I
that's a
mean, I
great
guess.
point. I think there's been lots of people throughout history that have proven that that's, well, at least that some people don't believe that that's the worst that can happen to you. And then you just think about like somebody like Socrates, right? Went on trial on trumped up charges. The Athenians said, you know, hey, we'll give you an out. Just confess to these crimes and we'll let you go. And Socrates was like, I didn't do those crimes, so I guess you're going to have to kill me, motherfuckers. And he drank the hemlock.
Yeah.
That to him, death wasn't the worst thing. Betraying himself and
Mm.
confessing to crimes he didn't commit for the state was worse than death. So he chose death, right?
Yeah, that's real.
Jesus, same thing, apparently, right? I mean, depending on what you believe about him, he had the chance. He was given an out by the state, just stop preaching your message and we'll let you go. He went to the cross. So I think, like you're saying, death is not the worst thing. And that's probably what Ram Dass was touching on as well, right? I mean, death is
Yeah.
transformation. Death
He
is
said it.
transformation, right? I mean, there's
Yeah. He
what's so
said it's like
scary about
taking
that?
off a tight shoe. I love that. I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've
Yeah, yeah.
never died in this body.
This
Maybe
is the
one day.
shoe, right? This thing
Yeah.
is the shoe. And yeah, Khalil Gibran, I don't know if you've read The Prophet, but he has a beautiful passage somewhere in there where he talks about like when you climb to the top of the mountain, then you will truly begin to climb, right? And then when you take your last breath, then you will truly breathe, right? You're not going to be encumbered by this body anymore. You're going to be able to soar with the winds. And, I'm a little bit poetic there, but I think that's the same idea is that we're only used to this experience because we don't remember any other experience, right? The experience of being Gary, the experience of being Oliver, that's all I've got to go on. But I know that experience is longer than what I can remember. It was going on before like my memories begin. I was alive, right? I was having an experience. I don't remember the beginning. And that's because there was no beginning, right? I think this
Yeah.
experience has been ongoing since the beginning and it just changes. And,
Hmm.
we remember a little chunk of it, but really the experience is far more expansive than we can conceive. And it just goes on. It just changes. It doesn't end. There is no experience of nothingness. You can't experience no experience. So if you're having an experience now, I believe it just continues in a different format after you ditch this body.
Yeah.
Now, what that experience looks like, I have no clue, but I'm certainly not scared of death as a result because I know death is not the end. It's a beginning.
Yeah. Yin and yang. It's like we talked about the polarities. Isn't
Yeah,
that such a
absolutely.
liberating idea? Because that's everyone's worst nightmare. That's why we have this such crazy world. It's because everybody's afraid to die. When it really comes down to it, like everybody's worst fear is to not exist. But if you know that and you have that mindset of like, well, that's not, I mean, I might want to exist in this body, but if you don't get attached to this body and this personality and your ego, then you don't have anything to fear. Like the only thing that I guess you could say fear is the physical pain that's associated with it and the actual suffering. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what, I no one wants to go through that obviously, but I know what's going to happen. So like getting back to what we talked about before, like, it's just part of life.
Yeah.
But like the actual process of, I see it as like a metamorphosis. I don't see human beings as the pinnacle of consciousness. I see it as just like we just constantly change and evolve, like you said. So there's no, like, people either fear. I've talked to people before where they fear existing forever. Like I've had the concept of continually reincarnating forever
Yeah.
and ever, and it never ends. And they say that's their worst fear. And then there's also on the other side of the coin, right? Is people's fear of never existing, and I'm not existing, like the concept of non-existence.
Yeah.
When those are two opposites, right? Polar opposites, but I think they actually encompass the same idea.
Yeah.
They're both the same thing. Like there's a story. I'm gonna butcher the story, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Do it.
there's this. There's this. This. I guess he's a holy man. He's walking in the woods, and he's going to visit God. And as on his way to go visit the kingdom of heaven, he sees a man meditating under a tree, just in a simple, just in a simple meditation posture. And he walks by him, and I guess he strikes up a conversation, and he says, "What are you doing, my friend?" The meditating man says to the man going to see God, he says, "What are you doing, my friend?" He says, "Oh, I'm going to visit God." And he says, "Oh, wow, that's cool. Can you ask him how many lifetimes I have left?" So he says, "Yes, I will ask God how many lifetimes you have left." So he goes on, and then he sees another man, and he's just dancing he's under a tree, but he's dancing. He's just having a great time, just looking at nature, and just like he just he's just so in the moment. You can tell this man is just he's just so happy to be alive. He's not meditating, but he's in this just like uh, state of just bliss and serenity. And he walks by the man, and the dancing man says to the other guy, he says, um, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm going to see God." And he's like, "Oh, wow. Can you ask him how many lifetimes I have left?" And he says, "Of course, I will ask." So the holy man goes and visits God, and he asks him, certain questions about what his own life. But then he asks about the two other guys. He says, how long does the meditating man have left?" And he tells him, and then he asks him about the dancing man, and he tells him. So he goes back to the man, and he's sitting under the tree, the same posture that he was in, searching for some kind of truth. And he says to the man, uh, did you find he asked him, did you find the answer? And he said, yes, you have about a million lifetimes left. And he gets hurt almost by it. He's like, what do you mean a million lifetimes? I spend all of this time meditating, and I work on myself, and blah blah blah, and I go through all these things. What do you mean I have a million lifetimes? He's like, hey, I don't know, this is just what God said. So he walks off into the path, and he has to tell the dancing man, and the man is just blissful and serenity and just so serene. And oh shit, I fucked up that story, dude. Hold on. Let me go back. So he goes back to I totally messed that up, but I'm gonna fix it.
Let's edit it. Yeah, yeah.
This is why I'm not a guru. So to the meditating man, he says the answer was actually 7 lifetimes or 5 lifetimes, something like that. But he still gets mad. It was still the same anger about what was happening, because that's a long time. 5 lifetimes, my one lifetime seemed like a long time. So he just gets so angry at like what's happening. He has the same response that I said before. So he goes on to the dancing man, that's so serene and in the moment, and he asked the question like, hey, what was the answer you got from God? And he said, well, you have about a million lifetimes left. And he goes, oh, well, that's fine. Okay, I guess. And he goes back to dancing and in the moment and just living his life. So the point of the story, and I wish I didn't mess it up, but everybody still got the point of it, was that, like, what I described before is like, whether you have a million lifetimes left and you live forever at the end of this life, or it's bleak nothingness and you go into like the void, it really doesn't matter. Like it just comes down to like enlightenment. It really just comes down to living in the moment and being
Mm.
happy right here and right now. And the man was so dissatisfied that was meditating was because he was attached to trying to be better, when in trying to be enlightened, when the other dancing man, just living in the moment, didn't care that he had a million lifetimes left, because he knew what was important, and that was just being here. Like how we started this whole thing off, dude, being just with the trees and realizing
Hmm.
just the beauty of this entire thing, and just the current present felt the felt moment that we have. That's what the dancing man felt. And that's what I think enlightenment kind of is. It's not being like the Buddha. It's not like chasing that I have to meditate at 6 o'clock p.m. I have to meditate Monday through Friday. If I don't, then I'm never going to reach nirvana. I think that's not it. That's missing the point. It's the
Mm.
point is would just simply, like we said before, dude, get lost in the ebb and flow. It's just you can do your meditations, but if you become attached to your meditations like the man under the tree, you're going just as far as anybody that doesn't meditate. It's that balance. There's just
Mm.
something about just finding that balance in life, and once you find that, I think it's not you don't I'm not gonna say I'm a fully balanced being. I'm not an enlightened being, but I
Mhm.
know the path. And once you find the path and you keep going on the path, that then your life becomes a journey to like
Mm.
sustain that, and to know that the journey is the destination.
That's
Pretty
right.
powerful, man. That's the whole like the vibe that I'm on right now. It's to know that like whatever happens, it's okay. It's just a journey. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I think those are great words to leave with, because I don't think
Yeah.
I can say anything more beautiful or wise than that. Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. It's hey, everything's gonna be okay. Which is, life is a journey, and just keep that mindset of knowing that it's here and now. Like this is the experience. Like, it's being here and now, not wasting your time on trying to just be something you're not, trying to meditate your way out of this life, or trying to like buy your way out of this life. It's just be fully encompassed in the present moment. I know that sounds cliche, but it's the truth, dude. We all know it's the truth.
Yeah, and the thing about it is it's cliche to people who haven't had the experiences, right? And that's, I think,
Yeah.
something that Ram Dass says as well. You know, he says to the person who's had the experience, no explanation is necessary. To the person who hasn't, no explanation will do.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to feeling the truth of it before you can really embark on that sort of journey that you're describing, right? Because you can think about it and intellectually you can believe that the journey is the destination or whatever, but until you actually experience the joy of the journey, you know what I mean, it's not a reality, it's just this like cliche, as you say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really comes down to the experiences. And you know, I think your channel seems to have a focus, or your show, pardon me, seems to have a focus on psychedelics, which I appreciate, because I think, and again, I'm just speculating here, but I think for the vast majority of people who are so far away from the kind of awareness that we're talking about, you need some kind of jarring experience that's going to shove you over that threshold and
Yeah.
into this bizarre psychedelic reality that we live in. And, you know, it's interesting to me too that the term psychedelic, you know, comes from the root words psyche and delia, which is to make the psyche revealed, right? So
Mm.
what you trip out on psychedelics, you're tripping out on everything that's in here that you can't see in normal times. It's like the barrier between your unconscious and conscious mind gets dissolved, and
Yeah.
all the stuff that's just floating down there comes to the surface. And that, for a lot of people, I think, is the kind of breakthrough experience that will start them off on a kind of journey that will have, you know, again, productive results. Even though
Yeah.
you're not seeking results necessarily, you will have experiences and transformations that are for the better. Um, yeah, because I mean, you know, I think I was very lucky, and you know, not a day goes by that I don't say thank you, because I've had a lot of these experiences without psychedelics, and I don't know why. I don't know why, you know, I had those, but for a lot of people, it sounds like the story starts when you drop that heroic dose or something, and that's the first glimpse of the greater reality that it kind of is beyond our little bubble, right?
Yep. That's what it is, man. Once you get that glimpse, you don't forget what it looks like, or how it feels. It's just that it's like an imprinting
Mm,
in your mind, in your DNA. It's just the path, and you realize what the path is, where it is, where it lies in you. And I mean, maybe people forget about it. I'm not in other people's skin, but I never forget about that path. And that path may last over multiple lifetimes. So
yeah,
who
yeah.
knows?
It may have started multiple lifetimes ago.
Yeah, and I just regained it. I just found the map, or it might have just started this lifetime. Who knows? But all that matters is I know it's there. So yeah, I guess just find a way to find your path in life, and that's the start to happiness, man. That's the start of just knowing that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. Um, there's lots of things I want to talk to you about, man. I feel like
Yeah.
we haven't even scratched the surface. You talked about conspiracy theories,
Oh yeah.
politics. You know, like I said earlier, I don't compartmentalize my life. I don't view my spiritual beliefs or my spirituality as separate from my political beliefs or my parenting beliefs or my, you know, whatever ethical beliefs. So, you know, to me, the conversations that I want to have with people are grounded in spirituality. That's maybe the starting point, but I like to hear about how people's spiritual beliefs extend or influence their political beliefs, for example. Like, I think that that's a conversation that isn't had enough these days. People tend to try to segment and separate those two, but I don't really see how there can be a separation.
Yeah.
What do you
No.
think?
Um. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's. Yeah, because once you come to those conclusions, you can't separate. Like, you really, they need to be intertwined, and because so you're asking politics and spirituality, can they coexist, or should they coexist?
Well, or, you know, do you think that they can even be separated? You know, do you,
No, they are, but they shouldn't be.
mm,
Like, they we need more spirituality, way more, in how we govern ourselves. And I mean, it depends what you mean by spirituality, though. Like, what aspect of spirituality do you think should be incorporated into politics more, or how we
Well,
govern ourselves?
yeah. So, I mean, I guess I should reframe that a little bit. Like the way that we're talking about spirituality, and certainly the way that you're talking about it as well, sounds to me like it's a all encompassing, right? Like you live your life and you have a certain path that you're walking on, and every aspect of your life is affected and influenced by your path, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's no way that you can separate. You can't be like we're all one, and love is the way, but fuck poor people, and screw,
yeah.
what I mean? Like, so
Mhm.
to me it's like it's hard to separate for me, because I feel like my spiritual beliefs are core, and everything else that I believe is kind of on that foundation. It grows out from the core spiritual beliefs that I hold,
Yeah,
nature of reality and self and all that stuff. So like I guess I'm curious, because if we're talking about like conservatives maybe in the US, for example, they're talking about religion and politics. I'm talking about spirituality and politics. Like I know a
mm,
lot of religious people who are completely not spiritual whatsoever. They probably
yeah.
don't even know what spirituality is. My parents are like that. They're Jehovah's Witnesses. That faith is very materialistic. It all has to do with your behavior. It has nothing to do with the contents of your character or anything like that. It has to do with how you dress, how you present, the words that you speak. So for them, they're religious, but they're not spiritual, right?
Mm,
So I think for a person like yourself, you're spiritual. I don't think you're religious. Maybe you are, but the point is you have core beliefs about how to live life and the meaning of life, of your life perhaps, and happiness and things like that. And so I'm just curious to know if those beliefs influence or affect other beliefs in your life, whether they're political or else, different types of beliefs about anything really,
yeah,
economy, work,
yeah.
ethics.
That's where it all lies. Like you said, because it comes to the understanding that we're all one. So if we're all one, that's where my decision making or opinion on matters starts. I'm like,
Mhm.
well, like, if I was a politician, if I was the president, I guess I would try to base every decision that we're all the same thing, which is like, I don't even think our political system is set up for that kind of mindset. Like, I don't even know what is the perfect way, if there is a way to govern the entire world and all of our struggles uh, with one world government, or like through these enormous countries. Like sometimes I even think like the best way to have those kind of like ideas are just through like getting back to our roots. Like if we just went through small communities, and I don't know. When it comes to politics, like I don't even know how our political system would work with the ideas that we're talking about tonight. Like if people,
Uh-huh.
like if at the presidential debates they debated like if we were like different philosophies and if we were one, like it's just there's no substance in anything that they talk about.
Mhm.
There really isn't, man. There's nothing that's real. It's all just like it's folly. It's just lies.
Well, as you say too, like I agree with you. I think the human paradox is that we're all the same, but we're also unique on an
Yeah,
individual basis, right? Which is kind of a weird thing to say. Like, are we all the same or are we unique? Well, it's both. I think at our core we're all the same, but I think that outwardly we manifest differently. We have
yeah.
different preferences, but those things are all like one. It's like 1% of what makes you you is unique, and the rest is all common and universal with all human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the current system of politics aims to make that 1% that is unique the entire conversation. It's all about identities, like identity
Yeah,
politics or
that's true.
whatever. It's all fixating on the cosmetic differences. It's like your paint job. I don't give a shit what color your car is. Under the hood, it's the same thing. It's a car, right? It's got the same parts.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, I agree with you. I think that what we're talking about here isn't even on the map in terms of modern political discourse. I'm more curious about, like, again, I don't want to know who you're voting for or anything like that. I just want to know if your political beliefs are affected by your spiritual beliefs. And it sounds like what you're saying,
yeah,
they are.
yeah.
So
They
that's
are. Like,
good.
I don't really like have like. I mean, I voted for the Green Rainbow Party. Like, I don't fall into any like I don't fall into either of these sides. Like,
Mhm.
if people right now, because it's just like you either want Trump or you don't. Like, but to me, it's just like, well, I don't want Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Like, I doesn't like it. That's not even on my in my philosophy whatsoever. So it's
Yeah.
just like my when I take my spiritual beliefs and incorporate it into politics, and it really just comes down to me just not even participating because
Right.
I'm just like, it just doesn't make any sense. I vote for a third party, like I
Yep.
mentioned, the Green Rainbow Party. Like I vote to, I know they're obviously not going to win, but I vote for a statement. You know, it's more of just like saying like, no, I'm not going to do either of you, and like, you know, to show that like there are other ways to do this, and that's what we need. It seems like we need, I know it sounds horrible to say, but it seems like we need like a revolution to just revamp, or not even like, not like a whole new start, but just like a lot of amendments.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
starts with that basis of just love, man. We just need, our system just needs more love.
Yeah.
Because people need to realize the truth of our connection with each other, when that's not like, that's not a known fact. Like if we were all brought up, uh every single one of us from the womb, saying like, all right, well, little Johnny, you are just like all of these other people, we're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. I'm like, wow. Like I had to come to that conclusion. My parents didn't tell me that, or a church wouldn't tell me that, a book really wouldn't tell me that. I had to
Yeah.
like feel that myself. But if we're raised, I don't think it's possible in one generation to do this. Like I think it takes years of human evolutionary human evolution, you know, conscious evolution, to really revamp a whole political system. So my
Mm-hmm.
opinion is that we're just gonna, there's nothing that I can do. It doesn't matter who I vote for. I'm just gonna have to really spread the good word and raise my children to be better, and that's it. That's all we can all do. You know, when we come to that conclusion, it's uh, just, you know, spread the truth, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen in overnight. It's not going to happen within this lifetime. Maybe in 2 lifetimes we'll have a whole revamped political system,
Yeah.
but it's the one that the political system that we currently live in was built upon you know, people were slaves when
Yeah.
when it was written. So it's just like, you know, a totally different world. We have to,
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of amendments.
Yeah, but even the spirit of it, like, you know, and I'm speaking about your country, you know, obviously, you know, the founding fathers and some of the ideas that they expressed, and even things like, you know, one of them said that like your constitution should be revised every 13 years or something like that. It's never been revised, right? So even though the founding fathers, as you say, lived in a different time,
Hmm.
were regressive in many ways, kept slaves, were probably misogynistic in a lot of ways because that was just the norm at the time. Even though they were backwards, they still had really good forward-thinking ideas and good principles at the root of their intentions.
Yeah.
Um, and those good intentions and those ideas were discarded. So it's
Yeah.
like, even if you had just followed the founding fathers, the country would probably be in a better state than it is now. But it's like, no, we just disregarded their advice and just kept the same old constitution for 100 and, you know, 200 years or however long. Um, but the thing that gets me is, you know, what I was trying to figure out from you is, you know, we seem to share similar beliefs. And so I was like, I wonder if as a result, his political beliefs are similar. And I have to say they are, because no one is really talking about this in political discourse. But my view, like yours, is that we need a new system. If we
Yeah.
continue to operate within this system, and that's in the US, Canada, whatever, we are going to continue to inch our way closer and closer to, you know, cataclysm and destruction. So yeah, it's interesting to me because you have the same beliefs that politically. I think that we need to maybe not tear the whole thing down, but maybe we need to start building something new so that when the old thing collapses, we've already got the new system in place and we're ready to rock and roll. You know?
Yeah, like take the good from whatever we have, which, because there's a lot of good in our system, like freedom of speech. That's amazing. Like, you know,
Yeah,
where the whole Bill of Rights, like all of the rights that we have, all of these
yeah.
rights are amazing. And but like we just like we're falling behind, it seems, like with the whole like the president. Like we don't need a president. Like we, that's just that whole system of, it's been meant well back in the day, but like now it's just turned into a reality TV show. And Donald
So
Trump,
it's
like,
archaic.
yeah, it is. It's archaic. It's old.
Yeah,
Like,
and the guy's just a figurehead. I mean, he doesn't make all
yeah,
the decisions. He doesn't, you know, have that much influence. You know, look at Congress and Senate. Those are bodies that have far more power, influence, and impact in your society than just the president by himself, right? So
exactly. Hmm.
yeah, it ends up being kind of like it ends up being a reflection of this desire that we have for external salvation, right? People are
Yeah,
looking for somebody to come in and just save the day. Oh,
yeah,
if we vote for this guy, he's going to make everything better. No, this guy, no, this guy. And that's why, you know, the central message I think that I have to share with people is that if you're looking for salvation, look within yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for your savior, look in the fucking mirror, because
Yep.
nobody else is going to save you. The president's not going to save you. It doesn't matter who you vote for. If you're not going to help yourself first and foremost, no one can help you.
Yeah.
And that's something that is just not talked about these days.
Mm-hmm. The
But yeah,
kingdom of heaven is within, man.
exactly. And it's, it's in your Bible. Like, come
Yeah.
on, everybody read it.
Yeah.
Please, if you're a Christian, read the Bible once in a while and see what it has to say. Don't depend on, authority figures to tell you what it means, because you've got a mind of your own. And that mind is a gift from God. Use it, right? Use it to understand the words that are written in this book, and then you'll see, holy crap, maybe they'll have breakthroughs, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that's written in there, Jesus was an anti-conformist, and he was killed by the state.
Yeah, right.
Right off the bat, you
Yeah, the
start with
original
that.
hippie.
Exactly, right? And he hung out with poor people, sick people, prostitutes, and all of the downtrodden. So start with that and see where that takes you if you're a Christian, right? I mean, start with that. But yeah, I agree with you, man. The system's bunk. But everything that we've tried in the past, from communism and even fascism, I think has certain elements of it that are valuable and should be incorporated into a new system. In my view, the fascist sort of function of government is to crack down on corporations and the extremely wealthy and powerful, to make sure that they don't take over as they have done now.
Yeah.
So, and then the libertarian side of it is for you and I, right? As individuals, if you're not hurting anybody, you should be allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Maximize individual freedoms, minimize corporate freedoms, and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you restrict them and regulate them so that they can't run amok. So yeah, I think that, and then capitalism, obviously, I think has some really good things about it. But so does socialism, because then you're redistributing some of that excess wealth to people who need it. So yeah, I think we have all of the pieces that we need in order to build something that is way better and way more functional for everybody. But it's just the matter of how do you instill, or how do you put that system in place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it just don't fall into any ism, whether it's a
Right.
political ism or a religious ism. There's any of those isms are just gonna, it's just backwards. It's just take the good from any ism and create a better world. That's what we need to do at this point. It's just we have to realize that we are currently in a time unlike ever before. And any ism that came from the past is not, if you stay in that very narrow-minded dogma, it's just gonna send you further, because the world's moving on without you. Like the world is changing, and we are all changing, and any of those isms are just gonna hold us all back. So like the time that we're at with the internet, and all of this technology that we have with the AI, which that's another topic we can dive into, like the artificial intelligence, and how everybody's mind is just so caught up in social media and whatever's going on. Like it's a whole different way of thinking and in living. And I don't know if anybody really has the answers to how we set up our system, right? Because it's just like this has never happened before ever. But I think it does lie into what we're talking about. Like the new system has to be built upon unity. It has to be
Mm.
built upon this unity that I guess we forgot about throughout the years. And that's unity with the entire globe, because people might have felt unity within like their nation state or whatever. Like, I am German, I am English, I am American. That's the biggest
Yep.
one. But like, it's unity with every single body that shares this consciousness. And if we can create that system based upon that fact, um that's when we start the new world, because that's the truth. Like that's God's truth, that's the divine truth. Like there's no other truth. You could write whatever law you want to. Bob Marley said, he said a quote, he said all laws are illegal. And it means that like you can create any law you want, any human law that you
Yeah,
want, but there's the true law, like the divine law. That's what we have to base our new system on. It's like
that's right.
it's that unity, love, communion consciousness of that we're all in this together. And
Yeah.
that's hippie talk. I know that's idealistic, but that's where we have to go. There's no other
Yeah.
choice.
I
If we
don't think it's
don't,
idealistic.
it is to like the person that doesn't know any better, like what the truth is. But there's no other choice. It's either, like you said, it's either we go to that world and we create that new world, or we're gonna destroy ourselves. and it could be a lot sooner than we think.
Yeah. I agree. I think we're at a fork in the road, and hopefully we haven't missed our exit yet, because
Yeah,
because it's a limited time opportunity, I think. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the principles of unity, the principle of collaboration versus competition, right? Like our
yeah,
entire parliamentary system in Canada and in the U.S. is antagonistic, right? It's all about conflict and confrontation. My team versus your team. What we need is both teams working together, bringing something different to the table, right? Conservatism is a good thing. Like I think prudent fiscal policy is a good thing. Um, but there are aspects of it that are regressive. So we need like the conservatives to contribute important facets. We need the liberals to contribute important facets. We need a lot of other people too. We need the socialists. We need everybody to come to the table and do it together.
yeah.
And that's what you're describing, right? Like the new system isn't going to be built by one person. If it is, it's going to be like the old system, and we're all fucked.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
new system needs to be built by people like yourself and myself and everybody, not politicians, because politicians work for themselves. They work for their friends. They don't
Yeah.
work for you and I and the average person. So yeah, it takes everybody. We all have to come together and do it and build it together, because it has to work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and how do you get that to happen? I mean, Jesus, thank
I
God
don't
for the
know.
internet, though, right?
Yeah.
Never ever, like you said, this is the first time in history where it's even a possibility, because you can network a million people together with the internet. You can connect millions of people who have
Mhm.
shared causes and shared ideas. So it, it's never been possible until now. And so, yeah, hopefully we'll be a part of that, and we can, contribute something to it. But
Hopefully.
if not, ugh,
If not, we tried, and that's all that matters. Like I know that it might be fruitless actions, and I see all the craziness in this world, and everybody's so lost. But I know deep down there's something in my soul that tells me I'm doing the right thing by holding these ideals and speaking my truth and saying what I need to say. Like I know that's the right thing. And even if now it seems like I'm doing it for no reason and nobody's listening, but it doesn't matter because I know that this is essentially, I'm just like I talked about before, I'm an instrument, I am a servant. And if I serve my purpose for what I was here for, I, just surrendering. That's it. That's all I need for happiness is I surrender in knowing that I'm speaking the truth. And that's all we can do, man. Like, that's really all we can do. Like if it doesn't happen, we tried our best.
yeah, absolutely. And I kind of think that, this is just my personal view, is that the universe, the Big Bang was the end and the beginning, right? Like the universe is going to end in a Big Bang and it's going to start up again. And I think that this is just an infinite loop. And maybe we've been here before. I don't know, right? But yeah, I think that if we don't do it this time, hopefully we'll do it next time.
Hopefully, yeah, exactly. Hopefully we'll do it next time, man. I think and if there is a next time, hopefully we see each other next time, man. Or maybe we already have.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but either way, yeah, I agree with you, man. Like there's no end. It's gonna be okay, and we don't got anything to worry about, y'all. Like this is all just a journey, and
Yep.
it's a never ending journey. It's one that we can, it's a gift to be able to be a human being, to be in this divine creation. It really is, even though it seems like it sucks sometimes. But
And
even
just
when
think of
it,
the odds, man. Just think of the odds, right?
yeah,
Like
right,
every sorry for the gross talk, but every ejaculation has like 2 to 4 million sperm in it,
yeah,
right? So
right,
the odds of you being born out of all those other ones is one in, let's say, 4 million.
yeah.
But then
Oh
if you
man,
go backwards and you compound those odds, because now in order for that to happen, your parents have to be born. That's 1 in 4 million each. Keep going backwards and think about the odds of you being here now. Impossible,
yeah.
right?
I would I
You
would like to
beat.
do the math on that one.
It
Like
might break your brain.
every man that has ever existed, how many times has he ejaculated on average, right? And then you compound that by like you can easily do the math on that if you just get like the averages and then you take the odds of where we are. It's an insurmountable number when you put it
It
that
is.
way. Yeah, if
And
you
yet
just
here you are.
if you think of it like that, that's pretty funny. But then you also throw in the odds of like of how the universe lined up and the planets and the Earth was this special the Goldilocks zone in order
Yeah.
to nourish life, and it's just like this is so divine when you think of it like that. It's it's a beautiful thing, man, to be alive. It really is, and that is that's the mindset that I try to culminate every day. It's just knowing that this whole life is sacred, and it is, y'all. Like anybody listening, like I know I might not be able to I might not be able to just tell you that with words, but it's the truth, dude. Like this is even if we do have another life, even if I live millions of lives before this, if that's true, well then this one is just as sacred as the last one. Being in this body, as Gary Haskins or Oliver, it's that sacred in itself. And if we don't have life after this and that's it, we go into the void, which I don't think is true, but let's say we just go into this endless void, then that makes this life extremely sacred and extremely a valuable divine gift. So either way, either whatever your belief is, or if we go to heaven at the end of this,
Oh, I'm going to hell, Gary.
oh yeah.
That's where the party's at, brother. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
right.
heaven, man. I'm
That's
playing harp on a cloud. No, no, no. I'm going to have shots with Genghis Khan.
Yeah, that's where the cool people lie. Either way, whatever your belief is, you have to realize that like just being here is enough. Being you in this moment, all your struggle, whatever it is enough. And that's cool. That's that's okay.
Amen, brother.
I think we can end it on that. If you have
I think
anything
so.
else you'd like to get off your chest and say
No,
now.
well, yeah, there's only one thing. We got to do this again because there's
Yeah,
AI and there's, I mean, I could keep going. I'm sure you could too. So
yeah,
let's plant a chat again if you're down because I love this conversation and
yeah.
I don't get a lot of opportunities to have these types of conversations either. So when I can, I like to fill my bucket.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'll be in touch and yeah, we'll have some fun. I don't really even remember what we talked about. It's been like 2 hours, and if someone asked me like, "Hey, what did you talk about with that guy?" I'd be like, I don't really know, dude. I don't really
Everything
remember.
and nothing.
Yeah, everything and nothing all at the same time. Exactly. So I'd love to talk about everything and nothing with you again too, dude. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Awesome, man. Well, thanks a lot for making time for me. And yeah, we'll chat again in the near future.
100%. And thanks for hitting me up and being interested in this my whole journey of this podcasting, dude.
Yeah, I got more questions for you. I want to know more about your path and stuff too. But I didn't do anything. I just followed the guidance. You know, I saw you, and it just I couldn't help myself. I was compelled to reach out to you. So I'm glad that it worked out and that our journeys have crossed paths.
Yeah, man. It's a beautiful time to be alive. But yeah, with that, thanks a lot and peace out.
Cheers, brother. Have a good one.
You too, bro.